Greetings, all. I hope that everybody is taking care of themselves, staying hydrated, and really protecting your peace. I know a lot of people, it's a big thing where we say a lot, protect your peace. I say that, and I wanted to offer that because, in life, we have a lot. As per usual, being human, we naturally may have a lot going on, a lot of us, whether that being working, being in business, taking care of the children, the hustle and bustle, but always handling your business. And then, on any given day, there's always something going on. It's always so much that's going on. So for me, I have to be mindful of how much that I am receiving as far as information and as far as things that are negative or things that, are the bad news, right? Whether it is people losing their mind, going through mental health crises, whether it is, people that are dying of suspicious deaths, or it's situations such as a 2-year-old being unalived in a dentistry. Just so wild and unbelievable. How could that even be an accident? How can that even take place? And how could such medical negligence even happen or take place? So the other day, I was out for an evening stroll with my kid, and I happened to look across the street and I saw someone laid out in front of a bus stop. So me, in my most authentic natural state, being curious, but also kind of probably just jumping in or tapping into rescue mode or training, or even, my natural humanness, right? I stopped, I looked, I observed, and I looked both ways, looking for traffic, looking for cars to see if it was safe to cross the street. It was safe to cross the street. So me and my kid, we crossed the street, and sure enough, lo and behold, there was a male who was approximately between, I want to say, 25 to 30, 36, 37, who was laying on his back with his arms stretched out wide, his eyes was closed, and he was overdosing. Classic signs of overdose. I have seen it many, many, many times. It's not the first time that I've seen it. I have witnessed multiple people overdosing in one day. So there was another gentleman that was there, and he had already been on the phone with medical. So he called medical and was on the phone with medical. My human instincts and my background training, I dropped down to my knees and I'm listening to the operator. So I dropped down to my knees and I put my hands on the guy's chest and began to do chest compressions. I began to perform CPR without giving this gentleman mouth to mouth, but I also was listening and observing what the 911 operator said. So to make that part of the story, long story shorter, we switched off, and the guy that was already at the bus stop that was on the phone with the operator, he switched over and he began to give the guy that was on the ground chest compressions. I checked for the guy's pulse. He had a strong pulse, but he had a gurgle, so he was randomly breathing and then he stopped breathing. He would stop breathing, but his heartbeat was pretty strong, and then he would start breathing again. And people that have witnessed people overdose, they have seen this, they know the signs, and they know that this is a common thing. So as I remained calm, I was also given information to the operator and letting them know what physiological signs that this guy was experiencing. So make that that longer part of the story shorter. Ambulance and the fire department showed up. Medical showed up. They continued to give the guy CPR. Me and my kid went on about our business. Classic signs of overdose, especially from what I believe that he was overdosing on. I can say that it's a high chance that this guy survived this overdose. So I am coming to you today to want to educate somebody, because once again, I have seen this and I have dealt with this on numerous occasions with multiple people, and I want to talk about the facts in regards to the drug fentanyl. I have talked about fentanyl very shortly back in, I want to say 2019. I wanted to bring awareness to it because a lot of people were overdosing and they were being affected by it just on mere contact of being in contact with it, with just the substance in powder form, and someone ingesting it or inhaling it and experiencing adverse effects of that, right? So with what I seen with this guy who was overdosing the other day, classic signs of a fentanyl overdose. It could have been some type of opiate overdose. Fentanyl is very common here in the United States, and a lot of people are aware, a lot of people aren't. Some people say that the statistics of the adverse effects or overdose is not that bad. I believe I've heard someone say that, and it really came surprising to me, but I have reason to believe, and based on the things that the information that I have come upon, I have reason to believe that it is still serious enough to where we should continue to talk about it and to bring awareness to it, because the overdose of fentanyl is a very common thing. So I just wanted to talk about some of the statistics and some of the facts of the things that are associated with the drug fentanyl. So 53% fentanyl is a factor in more than half of overdose deaths. Fentanyl is an opiate. It is 50 to 300 times more potent than morphine. So it's considered an analgesic, something that gives a numbing effect, if you will. It is a synthetic opiate, meaning it is not derived from the opium poppy plant. Instead, it's a synthetic synthetic opiate, which synthetic opiates are made entirely in laboratories. The U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency has classified fentanyl as a Schedule II controlled substance, meaning it has high potential for abuse. And the reason for that is because it has severe physiological and psychological dependency. And for people that need to know what that means, it means that it is expected to have a severe effect of addiction, if you will. Dependency, meaning that the body is going to need it, and physiologically, meaning physically you have physical signs of that. Psychologically, meaning psychologically there is a dependency. The body is always going to be looking for it, and if the body doesn't have it, as in any class or as in any Schedule II controlled substance, it will have the same type of effect where there is a high expectancy of addiction because of the effects that it has on the body, psychologically in the mind, physiologically in the body, physically. The effects come on quickly, but it doesn't last long. It can last anywhere from 2 to 16 hours. Overdose deaths from fentanyl are nearly doubling annually. Many deaths are from those who unknowingly ingest fentanyl. And this is one of the big things that I want to talk about as far as the facts and statistics that I have recently come across. One of the big things that stand out to me, besides the potency and the statistics of high dependency, it's going to be the deaths from people who ingest fentanyl unknowingly. There are many cases of people who die from ingesting fentanyl not knowing that they have ingested it. So, like, there is cases of young people, teenagers and young adults who are thinking that they're taking some type of medication or that they're taking a certain pill when actually they ingest fentanyl, and then they eventually succumb to that. So most people die from asphyxiation due to drug respiratory depressive effects. And what that means is pretty much their respiratory system starts to decline. It makes it hard for them to breathe. And that's one of the major physiological effects when it comes to fentanyl overdoses. It starts to work on the respiratory system. The breathing is slowed, the breathing is suppressed, and then eventually the body, the cells and everything, the brain, the heart, the organs can't receive oxygen or oxygenated blood. So then eventually the body starts to slowly but surely shut down. It's just kind of like the physiological signs that we see when it is leading up to someone who is nearing death. So also there is the slowing of the respiratory system, hypoxia, a lack of oxygen to the brain. 25 to 44-year-old males have seen the greatest increase in death rates. And that statistic is alarming because it lets us know that there is a large number of younger men who are dying from overdose at alarming rates. So that lets us know that it is a problem with fentanyl and overdoses in younger male adults. So then we can talk about risk reduction actions. Keeping Narcan is a useful tool for, risk reduction, reducing the risk of people overdosing. Narcan is pretty much it's a liquid substance that you put in the person's nose, and then you squeeze it and it go into the person's system. And what it does is it reverses the effects of opiate. So if someone is overdosing on opiates, if you administer Narcan to them, then the effects of the opiate that is causing all the physiological signs that's leading them to respiratory distress and all of the things that is leading them to overdose, that Narcan will reverse all of those things, and it will increase the chances of them surviving. But it actually works like magic. So Narcan is a good one to have on hand. It is advised that people only buy from trusted sources if they're getting their meds. Knowing the signs of an overdose, such as cyanosis. Cyanosis is the skin turning blue or gray around the hands, the feet, and the mouth. Cold, clammy skin, pinpoint pupils, slowed respiratory, and unconsciousness. And then one thing that the study didn't, that the report didn't record, but something that I have witnessed in overdoses is the bladder incontinence, or the releasing of the urine or the feces. A lot of times when people are overdosing and when the body is shutting down, what'll happen is the person will release their urine. So they'll essentially urinate on themselves, or they'll release their bowels, or they'll defecate themselves. And anybody, once again, that have dealt with this, that have seen this, that have dealt with overdoses or just been around people who were nearing death and showing those physiological signs that leads up to a person that is nearing the end of their life or nearing death. Those are common things that normally happen depending on, you know, how far in those stages that they are. So that's one thing I just wanted to add, that the report didn't include that. But then also one thing that I want to add is that if you guys don't know CPR, if you're not certified in CPR, or if you just don't know, you don't have that skill on hand, I would highly encourage you to learn cardiopulmonary resuscitation, aka CPR. It's definitely a lifesaver. You know, sometimes, like in the situation where, you know, me and my kid were taking a evening stroll, and we were out walking and things, and, you know, you randomly see a stranger on the ground who is laid out and they look like they may be lifeless or like they may need help. It's one thing to approach, and it's one thing to want to help. You can definitely do that. There's the Good Samaritan law that'll cover you for that. There's other law and legal things that you have to be aware of when you're administering CPR. But, you know, as it's always said that, you know, you don't absolutely have to if you don't want to. But if you're like me, where it kind of like your humanity kicks in, your human instincts kick in, you know, you can always give at the least chest compressions, even if you don't give mouth to mouth. So yeah, CPR is a really good thing to, really good skill to know, you know, whether that be for people in your family or children. Definitely can help save a life, and especially in that time, that precious time that it takes from the person who has fallen ill till the time that medical actually comes to show up. It's a lot going on, and I don't want to sound like a big medical expert or anything like that, but to be quite honest, dealing with that situation, it took me back to the events and all of the encounters that I had with people who were ODing, and just dealing with all of that, all of the chaos with that. It's a lot going on, always a lot going on in the world, and people should be made aware of the issues that's going on around them. You know, I said this before in a previous upload, and I say it all the time because it's something that some parents should be made aware of. It doesn't mean that it makes them any less of a good parent or anything like that, because they don't know. Sometimes people just don't know. But a lot of times in these situations with overdoses, and even though it talked about the male statistics of the high number of male overdoses in young male adults, there is still a lot of numbers of young folks that are overdosing on this drug unknowingly, sometimes knowingly. You know, a lot of times these people who recreationally use this drug, they use it regularly, they're freebasing. But when they freebase and that smoke goes in the air, and if you're close enough and you walk up on them and you inhale that smoke, you will be affected by it. But sometimes people, they experience symptoms of overdose accidentally just by being exposed in that way, being exposed to the smoke. So it is a serious problem, very much a serious problem. So I hope that this video is useful to someone. I hope that there was some type of information in this video that will help to save a life, so that people would know what to look for if somebody goes unconscious or if they are overdosing. and also to shed light on, you know, the issues such as drug addiction, opiate addiction, and overdoses here in this nation that we live in. So may you guys have a beautiful day, and ashe.